I immediately sought out the nearest dive bars where I could get buffalo wings and french fries and a beer or something harder. And it was in that space that I met my first dealer. And when Alex saw me, Aaron, in this state, he texted my friend Logan and my friend Paul being like, Steven is not in good shape. We gotta do the thing.
Yeah, you use it to self-medicate the anxiety symptoms. However, the more you use it, the more you're likely to need to have anxiety. So then you use it more, and it's this vicious cycle.
And you can tell I'm high. You can tell. I can't believe I did that shit for so long. Okay, we're back. The Attention Different podcast, the THC and ADHD episode, part 2 of the conversation between me, Stephen Tonti, co-founder of Attention Different, and my co-host extraordinaire,
Aaron Smith, licensed clinical social worker and ADHD coach over at Potential Within Reach, and also co-founder of Attention Different.
Ooh, smooth like silk, that intro. So the last time we spoke, we in this sort of 4-part series where Aaron and I talk to each other twice, and the two of us speak with Dr. Roberto Olivardia twice. We'll see. Maybe there's a third part on the Olivardia chat. We really got into it the last time. This is hopefully a 4-part series on ADHD and THC that we'll be releasing over the course of a few weeks, maybe a month or more. And both Aaron and I felt that it was important to, well, on the one hand, be honest and vulnerable and courageous ourselves about our own experiences with THC and ADHD, but also invite an expert into the room, Dr. Olivardia, to talk about up-to-date research that has been coming out over the last few years about THC and its effect on the frontal cortex and on the brain of all humans, but particularly neurodivergent folks, and even more particularly ADHDers. So based on, just to bring the audience back in time for a second, based on a lecture that Olivardia gave a number of years ago at the ADHD International Conference, Aaron and I were inspired to take a deeper dive into THC and its effects on the ADHD brain, and also like just on our overall psyche and soul and spirit. And
and today we're going to really get into, again, more of that personal experience and our own story. And Stephen has his own journey with going through,
boy howdy, some
addictive tendencies with substances, including, marijuana, and how he's developed some of these insights into himself and his experiences with that he wants to share with everyone. That's part of what we're going to just get into today is what some of those experiences were that informed your shift in your own use and behavior towards that substance in particular. And now knowing, having this information from Olivardia and clinicians like that, now knowing these implications, what our audience needs to know as well around their own choices. So we're not here to tell you in a moralistic way what's right or wrong, or what you should do or shouldn't do.
Certainly not.
What we're here to do is just impart, this is our own experience. This is what we've come to realize is healthy or unhealthy for us, and give you some insights from that and allow you to make up your own informed choice.
Yeah. So if you missed part 1, we do encourage you to go listen to that. That'll give you a timeline, a pretty like objective timeline of Aaron's and my journey in, getting introduced to weed for the first time, the sort of context in which we used marijuana, and the kind of length of time that we danced with that drug, right? Today, as Aaron said, we're going to get into the meat potatoes. We're going to get into the details, the experiences of. We'll get a little poetic today.
I think we left it off last time with you moving to New Orleans, and you went through this big life shift.
Yeah,
you just got done with grad school. You had realized you had gotten a little bit too far into using marijuana too frequently in that scene.
Mhm.
Then you move to New Orleans for a job, and that doesn't quite work out the way you had hoped. That studio
No,
didn't pan
certainly
out.
not. Mm-mm.
And now you have all of these temptations and vices swirling around you in the city of, what do they call it?
The Big Easy, Crescent City. But you can like I have other terms for it.
Mhm.
The original weird city, like places like Austin have the phrase "keep Austin weird." You know what I mean? I say ha 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 ha. New Orleans was much weirder the whole time. This place is like Vegas before Vegas was a concept. You know what I mean? This was a pirate town. This is a port city. It's been a party city for 400 plus years. It has been a city where cultural groups from around the world collect and exchange their culture between each other. It's a city of the birth of many genres of music, the birth of many genres of art and artistic expression. I stray from saying, or I kind of hesitate to call it a den of sin. Rather, it's a hedonistic paradise. So if you're looking to enjoy pleasure for the sake of pleasure or radical self-expression, New Orleans is uniquely positioned geographically and throughout time as a safe space, actually, for people to come here and radically express themselves and who they are, what they want, what they dream, etc. What comes with that are drugs and alcohol, right? So hedonism is as hedonism does. It's not all sober, folks, and it's in fact mostly not sober. So I want to just kick us off by painting a like bullet point picture of where Steven's at before we get into the struggle against weed, the trials to put the joint down, to so to speak, right? So when I arrived here, as Aaron pointed out, I had a fourth and fifth interview lined up for a creative development executive position. I was in the middle of separating from my then fiance. I had moved from Los Angeles to Colorado by way of COVID, back to New Orleans, the place of my birth. And what's significant about that is that I had lived in New York and Los Angeles prior to moving back here. And I spent enough time in those places that I had built very large friend groups in my industry, entertainment, and moved back to a city with like almost zero of those connections, right? So middle of a broken engagement, here for job interviews that suddenly they didn't go sour, but the job just disappeared because the guy offering the job really didn't have the authority to make that job a thing, right? That position a thing. And then also left both major sets of my chosen family to land in a place where I had to start all over, building a community, right? And on top of all of that, we were still all like shaking off or attempting to shake off the haze of COVID lockdown. I mean, it was still, I think it was 2022 or 2023. So that was still very relevant. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot going on and it was all disrupting, right? The sort of fifth note that I'll add here is that it was the first time ever that I had lived alone. All right. So now really, really big point that I forgot last time, but I had not in my life lived without roommates or a romantic partner or a blood relative up to that point. So I come back to New Orleans, I'm in an apartment on my own, right?
For an extrovert.
For an extrovert. Oh my God. Well, yeah, you want to take that angle. Yeah. So somebody who's an extroverted extrovert, that sense of loneliness and despair was very, very, very heavy, as was the sense of responsibility and ownership, right? I can't say that it was all bad. I did learn pretty quickly to love my independence and to love my own space and my own home. But the road to get there was rocky, to say the least, right?
I think there's some anchoring that happens when you do have people who are there, right? Roommates or a partner. You come home, you have that grounding, you're sharing space with someone else. It's a very different experience. I know this too, because I've been in that same spot, a different place in my life where I had broken up with someone, had to move out, was on my own. for the first time in years, right? Or maybe ever, when I had to do that. And I remember the loneliness of like coming in and opening the door and it's like, no one's there, right? You may have a dog, but it's like no one's there. And like, you're left with your thoughts. You're left with your, what am I doing today? What are my choices? What are the impulses that are driving me? And that's tough because now you're either filling time and you're trying to decide and reinvent your identity in different ways. And at the same time, I can imagine you're here in this new town with lots of, like you said, hedonistic opportunities for outlets. You're in this like identity inflection point.
Shout out to Down the Hatch, the dive bar down the street in the Lower Garden District. That became my watering hole almost immediately. I regressed back to like adolescent behavior in my 20s in New York. I immediately sought out the nearest dive bars where I could get buffalo wings and French fries and a beer or something harder. And it was in that space that I met my first dealer. That I met the guy who had mushrooms and weed, who was an exec chef at a different restaurant in Uptown, and befriended this person amongst others and started the cycle again here in New Orleans, right? So yes, and to everything you're saying, the and being, I went out and I found me a slice of comfort, right? Hey, Steven here. Sorry to interrupt. We just wanted to take a brief moment to tell you about this week's sponsor. At Attention Different, our mission is simple. Offer ADHD adults proven practical strategies for living a more balanced, fulfilled ADHD life. And that is why we are thrilled to offer our latest course, Thriving with Adult ADHD. While other courses might focus on the pain and struggle of being an adult with ADHD, and we do not want to minimize that, this course is designed around accessible, relevant, and applicable techniques that address the most common challenges facing ADHD adults. Inside Thriving with Adult ADHD, you will learn how to manage your energy for productivity without burnout. You'll learn to find balance by optimizing medication, self-care, and professional support. You will learn how to gain confidence and take control of your life through tailored, actionable solutions. Thriving with Adult ADHD features 2 hours of on-demand video, 10 downloadable resources, lifetime access to the material, and a satisfaction guarantee. Go to attentiondifferent.com/thriving to sign up now. That's attentiondifferent.com/thriving to sign up now. Hey, thanks for the quick break. Now back to the interview. I think the point that I was going to make previous was, in all informing what I just said, that first 6 months of being here, right? Let's call it the moving in time. I moved in April. I was living on the North Shore of my mom's place, looking for a place here in New Orleans, found a place, moved in August. My then fiance, the one who we had broken up but kind of got back together, we were in this in-between breakups 1 and 2 place, and she actually came in and helped me move in. I had helped her move to a new place in Los Angeles. So there was support, there was help, but I had not made any new friends here yet, which is key, right? It was just the handful of people that I knew, literally blood relatives, and then sort of fiance, sort of not. Between August and my birthday in March of the next year, October, November, December, January, February, March, so 6 months, right? The 6-year month was a steady and, depending on how you feel about 6 months, rapid or gradual decline in sort of the deepest trough of depression at that point. It would be after my birthday, that 6 months later, that I even recognized that I had been more or less in a state of depression for 3 or 4 years. And the complicated thing about that for our listeners is that depression is not just a solid brick wall that you can look at and see and feel, right? It can have like a Swiss cheese vibe to it. There can be pockets of light and happiness, especially for an extroverted extrovert who gets battery recharging from socializing or projects. I was in grad school during that 4-year period, this, that, and the third. Depression is not just a solid force that you work against, in my experience.
I like the way you describe that, like Swiss cheese effect. That's true. And I think there's, with the ADHD folks.
Yeah, there's like skylights, if you will, along the way.
Our own neurology and symptomology can mask the way that depression shows up, because even just taking stimulant medications and
Oh
having
my God. Yeah.
high energy, you can say,
Yeah.
well, I still have energy. I'm getting out of bed, whether it was hard or not, or disturbed or whatever. It's still, you push yourself, you get out, you do things, you're moving. It's not the same depression as like a lot of times it's just this debilitating sludge,
Like chronic fatigue feeling, like you can't even get out of bed, or there's just the why bother of it all. Like it's not consistent. It wasn't. I shouldn't say it's not writ large, but for me, it wasn't consistent like that. It wasn't every single day is the same shade of gloomy and gray, right? It just wasn't like that.
Yeah. So that was your mindset and kind of
Yeah.
where your head was at that point.
Yes, it took. I want to put a fine point on it. It took, like, I want just so people have like an anecdotal evidence of what this looked like. I do have a dog. Lila was a lifesaver at the time, coming home to a dog. But there was a point at my birthday where I totally dissociated. Two things are important. Number one, I had never had a depressive episode before this 4-year-long one. I'm convinced of that. This was my first sort of depressive swing. And we're coming up at the tail end of it, the like bottoming out before you start to rise out. And my birthday was surely the nadir for those who are nerdy like me, the very bottom. It's one of the only birthdays, if not the only one, I can remember where my body was there, but I was not present, right? I was surrounded by people I had only just met from between November and my birthday in March. And I didn't know these people, if that makes sense. Like none of my friends from LA, none of my friends from New York, none of my family or chosen family. I'm looking around at 12 people in my backyard, and the sensation hit me. I don't know anyone here. Like, who am I? And who are these people? Was the thought going through my head. It was literally after the 4th of March that I had a 7-day period where my mother and my aunt had to come stay with me because I was not capable of taking care of my dog. That's how serious this was. I was despondent, if you will. On the final day, my best friend, Alex, who lives here with his wife in Gentilly, they both went to college here. They've lived here for a decade. He came when, 6 days had passed and my mom and aunt needed to go back across to take care of their mother, my Nana. So my buddy Alex comes in for the last day. And this is key because I have a very tight group of guy friends from high school. We all take care of each other very angelically. And when Alex saw me, Aaron, in this state on the 7th day after my birthday, he texted. He's in the bathroom texting my friend Logan and my friend Paul, being like, Steven is not in good shape. We got to do the thing, right? And classically, folks like Logan and I, who are kind of like the mom and dad of the group, if somebody had a broken wing, we would go to them and like help them out. We're a very loving group of guys. So they were sending out.
Your friends were like sending distress calls for like, we
distress calls were going out. Like that is March 10th or 11th of 2023, I believe.
2023,
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
So here's where some irony takes place, but weed shows up in a pretty significant way. That was the rock bottom. And on my birthday, I believe, the 4th or something, I did get 2 emails / phone calls from 2 different groups hiring me to work for their company / on their project. So a windfall came across my radar just before Alex sends out that distress signal, right? It would be 2 months later before those 3 guys show up to my house to basically have like, intervention's the wrong word. You'll help me here, Aaron, but like a crisis meeting, right? Like a friendship crisis meeting where we like smoked meats all day and like talked about our feelings, and they were like, we're concerned. The irony is that I came out of this lengthy depression over those 2 months. I felt it. This is how, in hindsight, I now know I'm a lot more aware of what a depressive episode feels like in my body and in my mind because of having gone through it, having come out of it. And everyone should know, listening, that I have a therapist I've worked for over 7 years now, who is a godsend, is my guy. I love my therapist. Shout out to Max. So I was working with a therapist throughout all of this, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. I think, before you were working with Max, mainly, I think, around the relationship stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Then I think around this time, maybe a few months before, you probably had started to that path of transitioning to more of like, this is individual. This is my therapy.
That's not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, he was always my therapist, and I was the one paying the bill. So he was like legally
Yeah.
and clinically my therapist. But we were, to your point, my ex and I were working with him
Yeah.
more regularly up until that point. So at this point, it's just him and me.
Yeah.
And we had some pretty big great breakthroughs around that time. Like in April and May of that year, after the bottoming out, he and I had some really big growth potential arcs, like growth arcs and breakthroughs that were critical. But none of this does anything about the weed, to be clear, right? So at this point, I'm still going out to dealer guy. I think I had met a dealer or two more. I had met two other people and was buying weed, smoking it every week. And the amount that I was smoking was similar to under COVID lockdown in LA and increasing from there, right? So if I was having a third or a half of a gram a day before COVID, and then that increased to like a gram a day, I'm now having like anywhere between a gram and 2 grams a day. And that is, for the listeners, so expensive, right? It is also a lot. It's a lot of THC. We're talking about. I've left the eighth, the land of the eighths, and I'm now in the land of the quarter and half an ounce. Do you know what I mean? Of whenever I'm buying. So there was a notable uptick in the amount of weed that I was smoking. And for those listening, because I like to be exact and transparent, I was smoking spliffs, which are a combination of tobacco and weed, right? So this is significant because my relationship to nicotine would develop at this time, right? I've had cigarettes in the past. I had rollies. For crying out loud, I worked in the music industry and in entertainment. Cigarettes outside of a big barn door, of a Broadway theater are pretty typical. But I was never the guy who owned a pack of cigarettes. In New York, I would have a loose leaf tobacco pouch, but the amount that I was smoking was, I'd still say recreational or like case by case. Now I'm smoking tobacco every day. I'm mixing it in with weed as a spliff, but now THC and nicotine are very much together and paired up. And this becomes important in a moment when I start doing the sober Januaries, because cutting out nicotine had a wild effect on my emotions, right? So I can get to that point now. Around May of that year, I do a couple big things. I jump onto 2 new jobs and I sign up to do a breathwork men's retreat in Peru with my breathwork guy, which is going to be a 9-day hike, 3 different 16,000-foot peaks, and doing breathwork and meditation pranayama throughout it. I'm meeting with my therapist once a week for a number of weeks and months. Like it was on need basis, right? I now meet with him just for the compare contrast, like once a month, but at that time it was once a week, right? So I'm meeting with my therapist once a week. I'm meeting with my breathwork guy a lot. We're preparing for this big trip to Peru. By the time I get back from Peru in July, August, I am doing much better as a human being. I've got these 2 jobs I've been working on. I'm back to being a producer for one organization. I'm a sound designer and associate producer for this podcast. That podcast would eventually go kind of viral. #Journalista. Go check it out that fall. So I had started building my community here, my network. I had started dating again. This is actually when I met May, that month that my buddies came to do the crisis moment. I had met and started dating Emily, my partner, and we were still very much together by the fall, right? Still seeing each other. That's who I live with now. It's my nesting partner. So things were looking up. Things were starting to look up. But I'm still in New Orleans, still the den of hedonism, and I am smoking weed and tobacco to ding ding ding, y'all, treat anxiety. This is what I am consciously doing. Is I'm very anxious and nervous about the projects that I'm suddenly working on, about my behavior around collaborative peers. I had kicked off Attention Different with Aaron again that year, and we were making our first concerted effort in a number of years to get a trademark on Attention Different to file the LLC, to hire some of our homies, like people who cost a premium, but we know will get the job done, to help with our logo and our design and our branding Bible. I mean, Aaron and I, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, we really hit the ground running in 2023. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So around that time, if you guys are listening and picking up what I'm putting down, I'm layering on, I'm stacking on the responsibilities at this point. It's like I'm spinning not one, not three, but 5 plates again, which I, as an individual, as a producer, career producer, I tend to do lots of things, like both hands and both feet in many pots. But I'm still, in hindsight, I know this, I'm still recovering from a depressive episode, from the COVID lockdown stuff, from living alone, from having to rebuild a whole community. My cortisol levels and cortisol fatigue are very present, as is my central nervous system totally disrupted.
Yeah. Stimulants, caffeine, nicotine, spliffs, all of this stuff.
Yeah,
high
a good
energy,
time to
high
remind
octane
work
environment, spinning multiple things, trying to launch and relaunch Attention Different.
A good time to remind our audience that THC is a stimulant, not a depressant, right? So along with stimulant medication, along with the stimulant that is caffeine, along with the stimulant that is nicotine, I'm also imbibing the wildly dysregulating stimulant that is THC, right? So this drug that is going in there and really messing with my frontal cortex and my executive function and stimulating me, right? So it was just lots of stimulation. At the end of that year, I had enough run-ins with folks like you, with family like my sister, my mother, even my ex. There were a number of people who would have a Zoom session with me or a phone call. And, David, our podcast producer, people would go, "Are you smoking?" Right? So my first interaction with the shame feelings of doing something that people are aware of, right? That's changing my emotional state. It was around the fall and winter of 2023 that like people could see the reds in my eyes. People noticed that I was coming to meetings like slower or just like a little bit more sensitive, emotionally triggerable.
Yeah. I noticed it too. It was apparent. And I think like you probably didn't realize as the person, like you might have, like you said, kind of felt like you're self-medicating in some ways with treating this anxiety.
I think I was playing a different cliche game that you'll laugh at.
Okay.
I was playing the cliche game of how much can I do of this without them noticing? The joke being 0. The joke being there is no amount that
everybody
you can
is
do.
Noticing. Not everyone's telling you.
Yes, exactly. It was more that cliche, which is like, how much can I do of this and get away with it? And like, God bless everybody listening. If you don't have at least one really solid homie, go out and make one really solid friend who will call you out for stuff, even when it's crunchy, when it's hard to hear. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed. I've got like 10 of these people in my life, and at least half of them would cut me off in the middle of a sentence. You're one of them, and say like, dude, you're high. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't in a judgmental way, which is key, but it was in an objective way. Like, I can tell you're smoking, right?
Yeah.
And you receive that a number of times enough from your friends. Eventually you come to hopefully eventually you come to the realization that there is no amount of smoking or of taking edibles or whatnot that won't go unnoticed by someone close to you, right? And if, like me, you were doing this during work meetings, during development meetings, during Zoom calls, dude, one of the toughest things for me is to go back and watch early podcasts that we recorded, sort of like trial podcasts we did early on. And you can tell I'm high. You can tell. You could tell. Other people who don't know me might not know either the extent or that I'm stoned at all. They might not, because I'm a very extroverted, very energetic person, and I can mask in that way. But the people who know me best, folks like yourself, would say your cognition is either A, slower, or B, more erratic. Your emotions are harder to predict and more erratic. Your commentary, your rhetoric is more biting or fiery or defensive.
Yeah,
right?
you were interestingly, it's like you were more reactive. I feel like you were more sensitive and quicker to react to certain things. That's the way I experienced it. But also, I think you were. How do I put this? Like, I think you were more likely in conversations to kind of be less empathetic to other people. That which is a shift, because I think a lot of times, I'm used to the Steven who you can tell something to and you'll be empathetic and you'll
Yeah.
ask follow-up questions and we'll get into stuff, and we go deep, right? But
Yeah.
I think, like, when you're high, the conversations would stay a little more centered on some story or some thing that you have in your mind that you're
Oh
telling
yeah.
other people
Oh yeah.
about. Um, it's more of like you're in a I'm entertaining the audience kind of mode, and not and
Mm.
less being present with the people in who are
Yeah.
there. That's
Yeah.
that's how I kind of experienced it, at
the
least.
the scientific way to put it is like Olivardia did, right? The guardrails had come off from my executive functioning, right? So like any tendencies that are ADHD tendencies at their toughest, right? Like at their most challenging for me and for people around you, right? They were out and proud with no guardrails. There was no filter on the ADHD tendencies that can be challenging to us, to we the ADHDer, and to the people we love around us, right? Impulsive, interruptive, really chewing on details about something. Like, if there is a self-interestedness, a self-centeredness about it. And isn't it ironic? I'm doing something to get out of my head,
Mhm.
and that thing I'm doing put me further in my head,
Yes.
right? Which is
Yes.
something I had to come around to understanding years later. But
Yes.
I was trying to get out of intrusive, ruminative, anxious thought process. And the irony and tragedy of marijuana is that repeated use like that, regular use like that, often, and this is coming from general practitioners like MDs, my doctor, and also therapists and the Olivardis of the world, it is putting me, the user, back in my head, deeper into my head, more self-conscious, more paranoid,
Yeah.
more, more anxious. I mean,
The self
yeah,
perpetuating downward spiral of substance use, when it's
yeah,
used as a self medicating type of thing,
yeah.
as Olivardi said on the episode, yeah, you use it to self medicate the anxiety symptoms. However, the more you use it, the more you're likely to need to have anxiety. So then you use it more to try to tamp down the anxiety. And it's this vicious cycle.
And pretty soon, like this guy, like your boy right here, you're rolling tiny spliffs, like you're rolling small things, or you're taking only a few hits, but you're doing it before every phone call. Do you know what I mean? Or you're doing it during a lot of phone calls, but trying to hide the sound, like phone
Yeah.
here,
Oh,
and then
I remember.
yeah. And I mean, you remember David, our producer, would be like, "You're smoking, aren't you?" Like people, certain people in my friend group would be like, "Yo, I can hear you."
Yeah.
And that all of that points to a tragic level of self-awareness and shame and embarrassment for doing something that on some level I knew was not helping, right? So some part of me was very lucid in those moments, saying, you might call it A voice, B voice, C voice, like the other voice in your head, that conscious voice going, "Hey brother, this isn't helping. This is making you more anxious. Hey, you're becoming not dependent or addicted, but you're abusing this, right? You're abusing this, and you're not using it for a reward." Oh, a more simple way to put this: I had a clear thought in my head that was being competed with by other thoughts, but I had a clear thought that was like, what part of this is rewarding? Where's the reward? This used to be fun. This used to be silly. This used to make you giggle, right? This used to feel relaxing. Is this relaxing? Is this fun? Is this a reward? And in my moments of greater clarity and honesty, the answer was, of course not. No, it wasn't fun. It wasn't relaxing. It wasn't. Every once in a while, there would be a spliff that, like, literally I felt the, like, right? But the percentages plummeted.
That's where the line gets crossed. And there is no, like, exact red line here.
No.
It's not like the what is someone's use, overuse, abuse, dependency, addiction, where does that get crossed? And, like, when does that happen? It's not like, oh, yep, on Tuesday, this is when it got crossed. It's actually this slow creep that, like, before you know it, it's like, oh my God, I'm using more and more. I'm not enjoying it. I'm enjoying it less and less. Now I'm starting to feel like I'm using it in more and more environments, or before stressful situations, or needing it to feel like you're functioning in some way. And that's where it starts to cross over.
Yeah. And I want to take a little moment right here. I'm going to take a moment right here. For anybody listening who has the experience, or currently in the experience, or had the experience of being, and I'm going to use these words purposefully, being painfully aware that you're sliding into something, that you're slipping into something. I see you. I feel you. I forgive you. Now forgive yourself, because this is not an easy dance that we're doing. As my therapist would say, this is a beautiful, tragic dance. There's beauty in it because your beautiful, desperate brain is trying to normalize and regulate. You're trying to regulate. You're trying to do something nice for yourself and compassionate for yourself. It is a tragic dance because the choice that we make to imbibe THC is making the matter worse. All right. So, like, it is beautiful and it is tragic. It is beautiful and honorable what you're trying to do for yourself. It is tragic because the choice that we make in imbibing THC is making the problem more severe, right?
Yeah. The clinical division between that of where it's use, where then it becomes abuse or dependency, I think is like, it's when you have this compulsive urge to keep using, even though the consequences are stacking up and becoming devastating for you.
Yeah, no, my father framed it as the opportunity cost. We can kind of use this. This is a great segue to, like, first sober January. So after that fall and winter of 2023, I'm approaching sober January, or dry January. Listeners may have heard it as dry January. What Aaron just described was happening, right? Around November, December, I was in that double life, that two halves of the brain, that two halves of my psyche, that one part of me being like, alarm, 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 alarm. Like, this is not working. This is no longer a reward. I am so sluggish and foggy in the morning. I can't make it to the gym on time. I'm eating a lot. I'm gaining weight. I'm this, that, and the third, right? And then another side of my brain is like, alarm, alarm, use weed, use weed. Like the two halves are in argument. And a very keen sensation that I had was, call it nerdy or mathy of me, but it was a percentages game. I was very keenly aware that, like, what used to be 100% of interactions with weed were silly, giddy, special fun, suddenly was 80%, then was 60, then was 50, then was 30, then was 10. And suddenly, like, 1 out of every 10 sessions with a spliff felt nice. The other 90% made me more anxious, right? Like, I notably more anxious.
And I want to track this. I think I mentioned the last time about the model from Prochaska and DiClemente, the stages of change model.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted to track this on your journey, just as a way for the listeners to have this timeline.
Yeah, no, I ended up sharing this with some friends, the contemplation, pre-contemplation, contemplation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah. So there's the 6 stages of change. There's the pre-contemplation, where people don't recognize or realize the extent of the problem or have this like intention to change the behavior in any
I
sort of
like that they have this parenthetical. It says not ready.
not ready.
That's going to be important when I bring up a quote in a moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's usually defined like
ready.
within the next 6 months. So near term future, like they're not ready yet.
This would have been May of that year, right?
Okay.
Guy friends come in, crisis moment. May of that year, I'm in pre-contemplation. It wouldn't be until November, December that I'm starting to contemplate.
Mid contemplation, you're getting ready. People are letting you know, and you're starting to become more aware this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to be thinking about it. You're realizing you need to do something, right? But you're still on the fence. You're still ambivalent. You're not quite, you're stuck. You're in this waffling between wanting to stop, thinking about maybe, but not ready.
Yeah, that was probably Halloween of that year, October, November of that year, Halloween and Thanksgiving. Because you're around family, you're around friends, and I'd say around that time, because I'm looking ahead to preparation. I think preparation was by Christmas of that year. So take us away to preparation.
Okay. Well, the next one though, is preparation. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting ready, and the individual is at that point like intending to take action, and you're intending to do it more immediately. So often within the next month. And you're making small steps or a plan to actually.
It's so wild how well this tracks. It's so wild how well this tracks. Pre-contemplation was in May. I'm coming out of depression. Oh, wow, that was depression. Interesting. I'm going I was kind of talking with my breathwork guy about weed and tobacco, and my therapist, I was talking about it, but it was still pre-contemplation. On the deepest level, I was like, this is fine. I like the fact that I'm smoking many times a day, every day is fine. It wasn't until about Halloween and Thanksgiving that I was like, okay, enough of my friends have asked me the hard-hitting questions. Is this working for you? Is this helping? Is this good for you? So I'm getting ready now. I'm in contemplation. Then preparation. I'm ready. That was December of that year, right around Christmas of that time. Individuals intend to take action immediately. And what is immediate? Dry January, sober January. So we get through December now and preparation. I'm ready. What's the next one?
Action. So acting, doing something different in your behavior. So that's where your sober January comes in. You're working on quitting the habit or adopting new behaviors that help you maintain sobriety, reduce the use. And usually this stage to stay in it it's about a 3 to 6 month period where you have a significant commitment. Now, I will say that's also leads into the next stage, which is maintenance. How do you stick with it? How do you continue this, right? From a month, 2 months, 6 months, all the way up to many years. And a lot of people who go through addiction, what happens is there's often a relapse. So no matter how much there's the intentions, the plan, how great this is, sometimes there's detox, sometimes there's treatment, sometimes there's therapy. There's all sorts of great things that are happening to help the person. But this is strong, right? This is a strong thing. Addiction hijacks your brain to the point where you feel like you need it the same way you need food and water.
Mm-hmm. It's how you get to start the day. And this is where we're gonna pause at maintenance and we're gonna head back to action because
pick up back on your story.
Do you hear this? I'm playing little samples for Aaron through the board. Mardi Gras, right? So it's year one of dry sober January. And for the listeners, I and my very quickly becoming partner, we were not like officially partners, we're still seeing each other, Emily, decide to do dry January together. But we decide to do, I think it was that January. This could be the next year. So hold off on that. We decided to do all of them. Like no alcohol, no weed, no tobacco. And you'll forgive me, I believe it was just me that first January because you'll cut to the next January and Emily and I are very much together at this point, right? I can say it came back to me. So this first January, I'm just cutting out weed. I wasn't cutting out alcohol, wasn't cutting out tobacco. And that was action on THC. But Mardi Gras shows up right then, late February, March. But for the listeners who don't, the uninitiated, Mardi Gras really starts on January 6th, which is the Joan of Arc parade, and stretches for locals a full, like anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. It's a very long period of time where there are parties every weekend and parades.
This is 2024 now?
Yep. This is now 2024. I hope I'm getting all these years right, because 2026 I thought was my fourth sober January, but by your count, 24, 25, 26 would have been my third. Maybe that's the case, but the math is less important than the journey in the situation, because I want to capture what Aaron just read out in terms of those stages.
And it's a long journey. Like, this is another thing for our listeners. Like, we're trying to compress this into a segment to give people an idea, but this is a struggle. It's not an overnight thing. So even though you realize this is a problem, and you know, it's not a movie. A lot of times we see a movie and we think, okay, I see the plot and it goes in this like very compressed timeline, but life is not like that. Life is not that easy. Even though there's a problem, it takes a long time to change behavior.
Like Aaron, I may have even done a dry January I think I might have done a Cali sober January in 23. Where I didn't drink that January, but I still smoked weed. Do you know what I mean? Like I was doing the pop cultural thing, which is why it was still pre-contemplation, right? Yeah. I think that might be the case, because I remember 4 of them. I did a dry something every January since being here. So in 23, I think I did a Cali sober, which for the listeners means I smoked weed, but I didn't drink. It was 24 that I did my first like cut everything out, I think, at this point. So maybe I did cut out tobacco, weed, and alcohol, but I gave myself a date that I could start doing those things again, and it was February 1.
Can I ask you about these sober Januaries real quick? Was the reason, you probably have multiple reasons, but I'm just curious.
I think it was aesthetic. It was aesthetic.
Okay.
I think it was
was one reason in here testing yourself? Can I do this? Am I dependent on this substance?
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad you asked. Yes. Every time. Every time. Every time that I did a dry January or fully sober January, it was 1000%, and most of all, a test of, am I addicted to this? Like, can I do this for 30 days? And I'm happy to report that every one of those, I was successful for 30 days. But the first 3, as like 23, 24, 25, in 23 and 24, I started doing all those things again on the 1st of February. And then in 24, in 25, there was a unique shift. I waited until Mardi Gras Day, which happened to be, forgive me for forgetting, but there was like a specific parade. So it was 6 weeks instead of 4. It was 6 weeks instead of 30 days.
So you pushed it a little bit farther.
I pushed it about 2 weeks extra in 25. And that was the 24 and 25 were no weed Januaries, were free of THC. To answer your question in a different way, I did prove to myself, and the feeling was excellent during those dry and sober Januaries. You guys, the way I described it to my friends was my 18-year-old energy came back. I started dreaming again. I don't know if you know this, Aaron, but dreams go away when you're smoking weed regularly. I've discussed this.
It impairs your ability to dream and reach deep
sleep. Like it fucks with your circadian rhythms, guys. If you're smoking before bedtime, THC, obviously not across the board, but for most of us, most of the people I ask who smoke weed regularly, I'm like, do you remember your dreams? And very few of them do, right? Very few of them do. Some people have hyperactive dreams, like very overactive dreams, very saturated, rich dreams, and they smoke weed actually to curb that, like night terrors and nightmares, right?
Well, that's a whole nother
thing,
with
right?
Trauma and PTSD and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Amen. But for me, I noted that while smoking weed, no dreaming. So I was messing with speaking for myself, I was messing with my circadian rhythms. I was fucking with my deep sleep, right? So during these Januaries, about week 2 of this full sobriety in month, all my dreams would come flooding back. Man, they were crazy. Wild dreams would come flooding back. I had a surge of energy. And what I have come to find as of 2026, in hindsight, there was also a surge of emotional flooding, right? There was a lot of emotional flooding because I wasn't muting my frontal cortex. I wasn't muting the emotional centers, right? My executive functioning and my emotional centers. It was all there. No
You're
filter.
experiencing things more intensely.
Way more intensely.
This is important. This is a really key thing about the emotional flooding. And because I do think this is part of this journey and what makes it so difficult to maintain sobriety.
Yeah,
and
you're right. We
to,
can talk about it here. Yeah.
when you're removing the very thing that you're using to self-medicate some of these underlying core symptoms that are there, and
Yeah.
it's helping, quote unquote, uh, with some of the more immediate visceral things. It is the state shift, as we mentioned, right?
Right.
But you remove that. Now you're removing the coping mechanism that has been
Boy,
there.
howdy. Boy,
Now,
howdy. No comfort blanket.
yeah, now you need to replace it, substitute it with some other more healthy thing that most of the time is less immediate and harder to do.
Yeah, like going to the gym or like going for a run or like diet or sleep or
Right.
like regulating the other parts. But okay, so you were right. You were right to stop the train moving for a second because I can use this to bring up the wrestling match between my partner and I. That's right, you heard me. The wrestling match. I do have a word of caution for listeners, and Aaron, I'm curious how you feel about this statement, but here it comes. The year was 2024 or 5. Emily and I were not nesting partners, but we were partners fully at that point. We tried to quit all the things: alcohol, nicotine, and THC. It was not the right choice. To remove all of those things all at once after regular daily use, we did something we have never done since, but we got into a physical wrestling match on my living room floor. And I don't mean to scare people by saying physical violence. I mean cartoonish rage and anger at like how we felt, not at one another. So like imagine two best friends or two lovers like just wrestling to get it out. Do you know what I mean? And like I mean like the sitcom rom-com version where like we ended in the living room being like with our hair like this, like are you okay? And her being like, yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay? And being like, what the fuck was that? And her being like, I don't know. I'm just mad. And I was like, me too. I'm also mad. It was a very vulnerable moment. And we had like a post-mortem about it. It was, for the record, I even remember the day. It was day 6. So January 6th or 7th of fully sober. And we both agreed that for each of us, it was in this January 6 to 8 range where we were the most irritable, the most angry, the most flooded with emotions, the least in control, like the least regulated that we were in, like you said, Aaron, months and months and months and months. We had been smoking regularly, daily use, right? So right after the first week, like creeping up to the first week and into week 2 of full sobriety, Emily and I had a massive disruption that year. And we decided we were still doing the full sober thing. Like we committed to it because it subsided by like the 14th day, like the second week. And that's like when all the dreams start coming back and the energy comes back. And I'm in the gym every day. I'm having really important convos with my dad, my mom about how this is so important, et cetera, et cetera. Emily and I did make a conscious decision though, that if these substances came back, foreshadowing, that the next year we would not quit cold turkey all 3. That was too much, and that we needed to do it piecemeal, right? Like remove weed, but have a cigarette every once in a while, or remove weed and alcohol, but get a nicotine vape. Like we decided to be more compassionate to ourselves, and I want people to know that ends up being key, actually, because to Aaron's point, the emotional flooding was so strong that it started to disrupt our relationship. And we were very nervous that we were going to lose a lot of these romantic moments, that smoke after work, that doing the crossword on your balcony, having a spliff. Like we had woven in smoking or drinking to so many of our special time together, our quality time together.
Yeah, those rituals of life
Those
become
rituals, thank you.
surrounded by the substance as
Yes.
well. And how do you enjoy those moments without that? You're not used to it.
Exactly.
Totally foreign.
It was alien. It was totally foreign to us, and we had to reinvent these rituals. And it's easy to talk about this in a vacuum, but amongst the whole sea of life and work and jobs and responsibilities, like, you lose those rituals. They're fucking precious, right? They're like super precious. They're priceless. And you have to, oh man, we're doing all this heavy lifting, and now we have to reinvent all these love rituals that we have,
What you mentioned is a common thing as well, I think, within the realm of addiction treatment. This idea of it exists, like there's two different ways to approach curbing use, right? There's the I'm fully sober, and then there's the harm reduction approach of, all right, I'm not using as much, as often, or as hard of things, and I'm starting to curb behaviors and substitute it with other things that are less harmful. So as you mentioned, it's like, well, maybe I'm going to, although I know it's not great, there's a cigarette or smoking or something, but that's maybe better than drinking, or better than weed, or better than whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, and you see this quite a bit, because I might have mentioned this too when I was in the Olivardia episode, but just to restate it here, I used to do substance use, like intensive outpatient treatment groups, and everybody would be engaging in the smoke break, and like most people, right? Let's say 98% of the people in the room went out for the smoke break, and a lot of people were having the coffee, and a lot of people were having the donuts and sugar and sweets. And that's not a by chance happenstance thing. That is, those things are being substituted in ways to help the person maintain that sobriety in some ways.
Yeah. Is it fair to call it like the way lowest option of bad behavior on the bad scale? Like, if there's like an unhealthy behavior scale, that's like low enough that it's passable compared to the thing that they walked in with.
Right. Like drinking coffee at 9 o'clock at night, probably not the best thing for your health, right? But
or your sleep,
coffee,
right?
A coffee and cigarette is arguably better for you than meth or than heroin or something, right? Like, it's better. It's a harm reduction thing. Having a donut in a meeting is not great for you, right? These overprocessed high sugar things may cause diabetes and stuff. But is that better for you than having an abscess in your leg from injections?
I mean, I know a lot of doctors who are screaming, yes! You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of private practice doctors and a lot of therapists being like, yes, yes, it's better for you in that moment. Please do that thing rather than the other thing.
And it's a compassionate and for
I
the
use the word
folks
compassion
here,
poignantly.
it's a compassionate act where if we're mindful about it, right? This all goes to awareness and intention too. If you're doing something and you're aware and and you're working on it, like, this does take work still, because you can easily slip into, I'm just substituting one addiction for another and not being mindful.
Oh, for sure.
But if you're working on it with therapy, with groups, with whatever other treatment approaches, interventions you're doing, but you're
family,
working
friends,
on
partner. Yeah.
It can be part of the course towards reducing the reliance, and you're kind of winding one thing down and ramping another thing up and building those skills and capacities to then stave off the use. And that's, I think, a healthy, sustainable model, which helps to not get the person back into the relapse in a short order, right? From trying to just cut cold turkey. Yeah.
And bringing us back to that moment, using what Aaron just offered us, Emily and I tried to do too much too quickly. And the small t tragic result of that is that it left us in a series of days being like, well, that was awful. I mean, like, we felt very embarrassed. Like, we were really embarrassed and ashamed of our behavior that day. And we were so unlike ourselves. Do you know what I mean? A part of ourselves that was fucking furious and violent and upset, so upset, was brought to the surface, and not a version of myself and a version of herself that neither of us found attractive in each other or ourselves, right? Like and also scary. It was scary to get to that point. So we made a very conscious and compassionate decision. We're not quitting everything all at once again. That's not happening, right? Because it was dangerous. Actually, it was in a way dangerous.
It was too much. It was overwhelming.
It was too much. It was overwhelming. And so, cut to the reason why I wanted to just being somewhat conscious of time, but not rushing. Every one of these was a learning opportunity. At every one of these, I was still working with my therapist. I was still working with Aaron. I was still going to work, right? I was still going to the gym. I was still doing meditation and breath work. I was still doing yoga. I was still trying to eat healthier, eat right. I was the way I look at life often is a sound engineer's board, right? So you have all these fader switches, like the ones on our podcast board right now, and you can move these levers up and down, these and twist these knobs up and down like a volume knob, right? Gain on the audio. I was adjusting all of these healthier levers up and toying with these unhealthier ones, bringing them 30% down, bringing them 100% down, bringing them 40% down, right? So I'm doing, it's a very proactive and diffuse discipline, right? It's not just one thing off, one thing on. It's like you have to be tweaking all of these knobs and levers, right?
I like that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a board of 30, not of 2, right? It's not just the master volume. Right. The way that you help yourself do that is with assistants, like an assistant engineer. You got a therapist, you got friends, you got coworkers, you have your parents, chosen family, a dog, responsibilities that you have to be sober and there for.
You need your sound engineer.
But
for this, you need your substance use engineer.
Your substance use engineer, your SUE, right? Yeah. If you're the producer of your life, you need an SUE, a SUE. Everybody needs a SUE. Oh man, here at Attention Different Live, we just invented a new concept.
We just came up with that.
We just came up with a new concept. So if you're the audio producer, the audio engineer of your own life, everyone needs a SUE. Everybody needs a SUE, which is a substance use engineer. And those are your therapist, your breathwork guy, your yoga instructor, your coworker, your co-founder, your chosen family, your body doubles, your accountability partners.
Yeah. Those people in your life that can help you reflect back and notice which dials and fader switches you need to tune up, tune down, and how.
And tell you that it sounds good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Give you that encouragement, support, accountability.
A lot of what made this possible for me ultimately was a community of people in this place of all places, the den of hedonism, who are so like queer centric and radically accepting and positive. I mean, just like people who have fought the good fight against disenfranchisement in their own lives. So they're just so low judgment of their own community. I built a very positive community around me that even if the person I'm talking to on the porch is smoking or drinking or doing a drug, if I said I'm not, they would go, "Oh, that's so good for you. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear about that. Good. Right? Meaning like there was never a single person throughout these 4 years that was like, "Oh, come on, you can have a drink. Oh, come on, just one hit." You know what I mean? I was surrounded by people who were quite the opposite, encouraging me on my journey, being like, "I'm so glad you're doing that for yourself."
Yeah, that's great. I guess like that was a question that was coming up in my mind is how are you going to be able to maintain sobriety in this den of hedonism with all this stuff around you?
Yeah. It took until year 4. And I won't lie to the audience. It took, this is where I get to get that quote. So one of my favorite quotes of all time, the lore says, it's been tough for me to prove this, but I do believe it. There were 2 guys, Stanislavski and Boleslavsky, who bring us modern theater, modern storytelling. So like whatever you consider modern acting right now, it comes from these 2 Russian guys who went around the world in the late 1800s and watched everyone's version of acting and of theater. And they built their own. You may have heard it, Aaron, the method, right? And this is not me being a method head, right? I'm just saying, actually, these 2 guys brought us what we call the realness, right? Trying to affect realness, modern acting, right? There are a bunch of different schools of thought, but they started it, right? And they spread it around. Boleslavsky was Stanislavski's assistant. And Boleslavsky is who I'm quoting here. One of his quotes, or what quote attributed to him, is, "Only when the subject is truly fed up can the real work begin," right? And what this means to me is that in any habitual change journey, the subject, me, I will only take disciplined, planned action steps towards changing that behavior when I am truly after a point of being truly fed up. And that moment came for me after a full year of our company Attention Different being online, a full 2 years of people being like, "I can tell you're high, bro." After Sober January was done and Mardi Gras comes, we go right back into the behavior, and it would slowly but surely gradually get back to the same place of everyday use and abuse, right? So after literally 3 years of that cycle, it was December of last year, 2025, that I got geared up, put on my pack, got my tools. I geared up for another Sober January. And honestly, Aaron, I can't remember the moment. I don't think there was a moment, to your point. Just like you can't remember a moment that you stumbled into abusive or addictive behaviors, I can't remember the moment that I was fed up. But I remember sort of a phase of it. Like I remember a phasal shift, a tidal shift in my feeling towards weed late last year, like end of summer into fall, where I blew through those stages you gave us, right? I blew through contemplation. I blew through preparation. I blew through action. I got all the way up to action really fast and told Emily, "Hey, when we go back to Dallas, I'm not going to smoke at home," because I had dealers everywhere, baby. "I'm not going to smoke at home during Christmas. I'm gonna start the end there. And when we drive your car," because we were grabbing her a used car in Dallas, "when we drive your car back, I'm gonna have a spliff that night. I'm gonna have a spliff on January 1, which is my special smoked brisket day. I smoke a full brisket for 12 hours every January 1 for the last 9 years now." I said, "That's going to be my last spliff until at least Mardi Gras," I think I gave myself, which was going to be some February day. "But I think that's going to be my last regular use joint. Something has changed." You know what I mean? Like the old song, "Something has changed within me," the Wicked song. Something had changed. There was a big shift. And I felt fed up. I was saying the Boleslavsky quote a lot to myself. I damn near got a tattoo of it. I was finally fed up. And lo and behold, cut to April 16th. And I'm happy to tell you that I am in the maintenance but not termination phase. And what I mean by that is I had my last spliffs on January 1. I then had a single toke of weed, like a single toke or two of a joint on Mardi Gras day. Note, here's an asterisk, note to the listeners: when you stop smoking, your tolerance plummets. And the next time you have a hit, it will be of the same 25 to 35% THC that we're all smoking today. And you'll remember that conversation we had with Olivardia. In a moment, you'll go, "Oh, this is not my father's weed. This is not the weed from when we were in high school. This is incredibly strong." Incredibly strong.
Again, here's where I'll interject and give a little bit of context for folks here. This actually is one of the most dangerous points. People don't realize it.
Totally.
But most people who get into this phase of relapse, this is where it becomes deadly. Where depending on the substance, this isn't with weed. Of
course.
Right. Because most people are not overdosing on weed. But I want to say for people who have other
Xanax
substance
or
use,
like heroin or things like that.
Yes. Fentanyl, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't realize it. And I had a very close friend of mine who did overdose in this exact way. I went to social work school with him. His name was Mike. Sorry, I was bringing up emotions just talking about it.
Of course, honey.
Because yeah, he was on that trajectory of having been sober, had a relapse period, and he had gotten his life together. He had married. He had a brand new job. He had just graduated Columbia, the social work degree, master's in social work, and had his dream job at the VA helping other veterans. And he relapsed on heroin. And he ended up overdosing the night of his wife's birthday. He went into the shower and had hidden his rig and his drugs in the toilet. He thought he was being sneaky. He thought he could handle it. He thought he was using, and he was he was one of the smartest guys I know. Like, and he knew substances, knew all this stuff in and out. He studied this. Literally, he was a social worker and studied substance use. Right. Worked at places doing this for years. So it's not like he did not have the background and the knowledge. You know? No. But that's what addiction does, is it fools you into this sense of calm and safety where you think, I know I can handle this. Well, guess what? He didn't. And he overdosed. His wife had to break down the door and find him dead.
So sorry.
Yeah. And this is just where I want to bring this real example here, because I think it's important for people to understand just how real and how hard relapse is, and how much we can end up thinking that we can tolerate the same amount of use that we had when we were in the throes of the addiction.
Yeah, and I think it's not only am I honored by your sharing and reminding me about Mike, because I remember this, it's an important sticky point to talk about for a second. These drugs they exist kind of unfortunately. Like it's an unfortunate, like it's a shitty game that we're playing, that these drugs exist on a scale of danger to your life, of threat to your life, that is trackable. Like fentanyl is by definition 1,000 billion times more dangerous than a joint, right? Like than weed. Like it's just when you're talking about a drug that if you touch and gets on your skin can cause cardiac arrest, like, wow. Those are like poison darts from movies. You know what I mean? So like, unfortunately, all these drugs exist on this scale, and it's a little bit of a devil's trick, because weed has been able to, THC, marijuana has been able to sort of sneak through by being a non-life-threatening substance in the same way that heroin or fentanyl or Xanax or, Xannies, that sort of thing. Like, it's been able to sneak on by because a relapse doesn't usually end in someone's death because of the weed, because of the marijuana. Right?
Unless, and we'll put a caveat here, unless you have a history of psychosis or bipolar.
Exactly.
For some of those folks, can put you into a life-threatening
super dangerous situation, life-threatening situation. Exactly my thought, right?
Yeah.
But Aaron's telling us about that story is to remind us that every one of these substances on that scale, we develop a tolerance for and on that changes dramatically when we cut it out of our lives. And to return to it at a point of relapse, depending on where you fall on that scale, can be life-threatening, can be a deadly choice. But regardless of where you fall on that scale, will be a very complicated and risky choice, right? Because that substance is now hitting you at full force, and your tolerance is way down. I will tell you that with weed, the sensation that I knew I was going to have and had was that I no longer was the person who could smoke 2 spliffs, 3 spliffs a day. I was the person who took 2 hits from a joint and was almost hallucinatory high. Like I kind of got a little hallucinatory. Like it was, I was very, very, very high after 2 long drags of a joint. right? And this is about 6 weeks into the year of this year. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the sensation. But lucky for me, the sensation I was more keen on was actually, honestly, it was a confirmation. It was a confirmation of the Boleslavsky thing. It was the thought process that I was having, sitting in a chair on my porch, safe, looking up at the moon and stars, giggling and texting my friend. The following thought I had was, oh, I was doing this every single day.
Mm.
I can't believe I was doing this to my frontal cortex every single day. That is shocking to me. I was left sitting on this little rocking chair, shocked and honestly appalled. I was Boleslavsky levels of fed up. Still was like, man, fucking no way. I'm safe because it's Mardi Gras. I'm safe because this whole city's partying right now. There's so much scaffolding around me right now that I can get away with this. And it's not a life-threatening intravenous drug. Like I felt so, I want to be really clear with the audience. I felt like I was cheating the system and it didn't feel good anymore. It didn't feel like I was sneaking away with something and ha 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 he he he. I really felt like that I had that moment of looking the man in the mirror. I had that moment of Boleslavsky. What is this serving? What is this doing for you? You were doing this every day, my guy. Like every day you were doing this to your executive function. And so we are now 2 full months past that day. And I've been marijuana free that whole time. Right. So yeah. I'm very proud. I am proud. This is that point where if you're still watching, you're a real fan. I am still dealing with nicotine. This is so something that my partner and I have been planning is Jazz Fest is coming up, and I am going to move from a nicotine vape to a non-nicotine vape. And then I will move from a non-nicotine vape, hopefully, to no vape at all. Right.
Right. So you're doing the harm reduction approach.
The harm reduction thing. And the reason is weed was the much bigger gorilla. Weed was starting to really spook me. Hopefully heard the Olavardia interview. It is not great for ADHD brains. It's really not great. And it can do permanent damage. We now
how have you been feeling? What are some insights and things you've been feeling since you've been sober?
Well, first of all, talk about empathy. My heart is like torn open to a million pieces for you, and I just want to sit here and sob with you over mic. Like, so that like bringing us back to that moment that you said of like me not being connected during a conversation, me being in my own world, me wanting to keep chewing on my own thoughts. I've had moments with my therapist this year that are so emotionally present and vulnerable that are the words that come to mind are clarity, lucidity, honesty.
Transformational.
Yeah, but I also mean like in those moments, like there's nothing performative. There's nothing like, when I would be stoned, there would be this internal monologue like, well, you can't let them know that you're high, so like do this or do that, or like how are your eyes looking? Like I would get so trapped in a performative state of being rather than a present state of being, rather than just being, right? So I feel okay, I'm going to finish that thought. I feel much more present. I feel much more authentic. However, here's a big thing. January and even February and all the way up to today, the peoples must know. Back to that emotional flooding thing. I am me, fully me again, and unmuted. There comes a big challenge with that. I have had to kill the part of my ego, or the part of my anxious ego that was screaming at me, this is uncomfortable. Let's do something to change this, right? I'm the kind of person who just about has embraced the discomfort tattooed somewhere on my body one of these days. But it's a lot easier to say than it is to live, right? And every bit of my ADHD and anxiety and sort of depressive episodes and anger or frustration, it's all there now. Right? There's nothing muting it. There's nothing stopping it other than whatever I do to regulate, whether that be the gym, whether that be my stimulant medication routine, whether that be breath work, therapy, etc. And that has been really challenging. It's exhausting. Living a sober life is exhausting, but it's worth it because all of the moments that can be beautiful are more beautiful than ever. They're unfiltered. Like, yes, my painful moments are unfiltered, but so are the beautiful moments. They're that has been the driving force for me is, oh, and I mean, not to be this addicted to capitalism, womp womp, but my ability to be able to manage all the plates that I spin as a producer, as a professional storyteller, the ability, what I've been calling it is pivot, my ability to pivot, right?
Mhm.
Some of you out in the world may know the concept, especially entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
but my ability to pivot in a day, between things, in a week, in a month, big pivots, is just there. It's just there. I can pivot. I can transition.
Yeah, it's like what you can handle, your capacity to handle stress and all of the things that are going on
Is so much,
exponentially increase.
oh, exponentially. Thank you for the word, exponentially, incalculably, right? Like, there is no comparison from the Steven last year and the years prior
Yeah.
in terms of capacity to the
Yeah.
guy now. And that's, by the way, that's emotional too. That's partnerships and friendships,
Yeah,
like big R
the
relationships.
space that the
Ugh,
substance takes up in your life, we don't calculate the
no,
consequence of that, what it takes away, what it robs us of life. How much time are we investing and spending into the use, and what is that robbing of that? That's the actual cost that we don't account for, and you don't
the
know it
opportunity cost.
often. Yeah, the opportunity cost, you don't know it until you've zoomed out and are at that 1,000 foot above level, and you're looking back and you're like, whoa. Like, I days past, I could only deal with two stressful things, and then I'm like, I need to smoke or something, right?
Yeah,
Now it's like, oh, okay, this thing, that thing happened, this thing, okay, but I'm still going. I have the energy, I have the
I
capacity
shock
to
myself. I
deal with
literally
stuff.
surprise myself lately. I surprise myself every third day. Every 3 or 4 days, something will happen, a disagreement, an argument. Life is hard. It's especially hard with a giant orange carrot monster sociopath running your country. So it's like life is really, really challenging when the outside world should, and I'm gonna use an important should here, should be more stable and sane and like we all want the outside world to be a reflection of our best inside self, right? Like calm, compassionate, sweet. But when the outside world is a fucking nutty, crazy circus geopolitically, it's understandable that inside you feel stressed, distressed, anxious, afraid, nervous. Like what is this all for? Existential dread, nihilistic. Like why am I going to work at X, Y, and Z job if the whole world is burning anyway? Like that's understandable. Life be hard that way. It's so much more difficult with a lower capacity to deal with the daily ups and downs. And I surprise myself lately when I get through a moment that it's always on the other side, as Aaron pointed out. It's always after a moment of dysregulation or after a moment of disagreement or after thing where I look at that like right on the other side and I go, oh man, that would have fucked me up last year.
Mm.
Like that would have fucked up my whole day. That would have fucked up 3 days. That would have eaten up so much time and emotional space. And I'm on the other side. It was 15 minutes. It was just 15 minutes. I'm fine. Like I'm totally fine. And I check in with my partner. Hey babe, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And I'm surprised that only 15 minutes have passed. And I'm like, all right, I guess I can go back to doing what I was doing. I feel fine. You know what I mean? So it's still a surprise that opportunity cost, that high opportunity cost that was involved in that behavior every day last year. Now that we're looking at without like not accounting for, or rather accounting for the Mardi Gras day regression or relapse, it's been essentially we're looking at 4 months of time, 2 months of not having weed at all between the last usage. And that's why I firmly plant myself in the maintenance category where I'm trying to get to that 3 to 6 months of this behavior where I know like, okay, if I wanted to terminate this, I could. Like I could just stop doing it forever. And I'm quite nearly there. I'm in the place of like if we wanted to give contemplation back in the room, I wonder if you'll vibe with me on this. I feel like in the place of maintenance before termination, there is another stage of contemplation. And that stage of contemplation is there's a bit of a forgiveness here, again, another cheat code because it's weed, right? It's not an intravenous drug. It's not something that could kill me if I did again. I feel like there's this other phase of contemplation where I have to ask myself, does this make sense?
What people would tell you in the rooms in an addiction circles is what people consider bargaining.
Bargaining, right.
And that really is, I think, comes down to some of these rationalizations, justifications, excuses, minimization, where we tell ourselves, oh, it's not so bad, or oh, just one, or it won't. I've done it long enough. It'll be fine. And or you know it, you're back in the throes of the same vicious cycle and behavior that you have been in.
Okay. Yeah. I'm confronting that in maintenance stage is what I'm trying to point out. There's that place in maintenance where you confront the how bad is it voices, right? The like, how bad would it be if I only drink a glass of champagne on a red carpet? Is a classic one in my world of entertainers. How bad is it if I only have a glass of champagne at the wedding? Right? How bad is it if I only have a joint on the beach in a foreign country on vacation? Right? It's not allowed back in the house here. It's not allowed. Rationalization. I'll be honest with my listeners. I'm still at that point. I still have a judge and jury in my head that are like, there's good evidence on both sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it can undermine our own intentions. It wears at us. If we entertain those thoughts and allow it to take space in our head, that subtle script and tape that is playing there it gets louder, right? That switch, that volume control starts to insidiously turn up, where it's like we realize it's a subtle thought at first, but it's a creeping thing, and then it becomes like it's the soundtrack that's playing, because it's like, and then you think to yourself, that's true. But what we have to do when we're in this place of truth seeking and being very intentional about our behaviors, I think we need to realize, for some folks, it is not an option to have just one or just something, right? And it's a hard realization to get to admit that to yourself.
It feels alien. Yeah, it feels like disconnected somehow.
Yeah, like sobriety, it becomes an identity. But I think like a lot of people will tell you who have been on this journey, people that are listening to this who are sober and have been sober for years, will say it's a day at a time, and those temptations will be there every day.
Oh, I mean, just the plumes of smoke you walk through nowadays.
They get quieter. They get quieter. The intensity gets less the longer that you're sober. However, the risk is still there. The consequence is still there. Of making the opposite choice. It will always be there. And we have to decide for ourselves who we want to be, who we need to be that better version of us.
Yeah, I want to take a moment of like little vulnerable courage honoring section, because I've heard there is a great deal of value and truth, like well-researched truth, to the part of like AA or Drug Users Anonymous, like when people are on their sobriety journey, to like re-engineer, like renegotiate relationships, like do not hang out in the spaces or with the people where that drug is prevalent or alcohol is there, right? And I'm not discounting or discrediting that. It makes sense even on its face, right? Oh, don't have it in the house. If you have a problem with sugar, if you have a problem with weed, if you have a problem with tobacco, get it out of your house. Don't go to the dive bar if you're trying to quit drinking, to do your homework or to do your work, right? Or read the paper. Don't going out. I'm saying this to a specific group of people. That's not fully possible for everyone. If they're a career audio engineer, if they are a career producer, if they are a career entertainer, there are, and by the way, it's a very powerful mafia. There is an Alcoholics Anonymous Hollywood mafia that I learned from a sober friend who talks about how they have actually like meetups. There are like people at various stages of power in Hollywood who are sober. And for the record, if you were curious, yeah, they do know each other and they do meet up. They do projects together. So there is wiggle room here. There are spaces where you can have a dry set, for instance. However, my experience by and large, especially down in New Orleans, is that if I'm going to play the drums in a band, weed is going to be in the room at some point. Drugs are going to be in the room. Alcohol is going to be in the room. What does someone like my band leader do right now? He has had a past issue. He's the same age as me, 35. He has had an issue in the past of alcohol and cocaine being linked, right? Like you drink and then suddenly you're doing drugs and you're on a 2-day bender. He has made decisions to isolate himself in his house and not go to parties with the purpose of, if I have 1 drink or 2 drinks, it's going to, you know what I mean? So he has to reset constantly and set these boundaries. They rise and fall. He's the leader of a band. He's a rock star, right? He sings. He's going to be on stage in front of people. Alcohol is there, right? He's not going to live a life where he only goes to dry bars and plays music. So I want to give a nod to the people listening who have had to set what I'll call like precarious boundaries, right? Where you're still the person in the room. You can't cut that thing out of your life entirely because you still have to go to band practice. All right. I remember the moment along this journey this year, it was in January, when I was practicing with this band, stilts practice, because we were doing like a stilts marching band thing, that there was weed in one of the bandmates' car. And they asked me to go get a pipe from the car and the weed from the car and bring it to him so we could all hit it. And I said, being my better angel for myself, I said, okay, you guys can have it. I'll bring it to you, but I'm not going to do it because I remember sober January, remember guys, and like, oh, right. Yeah. Is it okay if you, again, my friends are very sweet. Is it okay if like you touch it? You know what I mean? I was like, yes, I can go grab it from the car. I just don't want to smoke it while you guys smoke it. So I go back, I grab it, and I held the nug and the pipe for a while in my hand. And I heard the Bolesovsky quote, "The real work only begins when the subject is truly fed up." And I brought it over to them, gave it to them. And you know what happened? This was a really weird moment. My homie accidentally knocked the pipe off of the car. We were on stilts with like a wrench, and the pipe shattered. And I'm not saying that everybody should wait for this moment, but I'm offering this moment of like, I looked at it and I was like, whoa, like an eerie, like there was some force looking out for me in that moment. I had the moment privately, but like not minutes later, the pipe shattered. And I was like, copy that, Shiva. Like, I was like, copy that, bro. But I'm using that anecdote to say there are many moments where I'm around weed. I've gone to band practice, opened the door, and there's a plume of weed smoke. And I will go open up another door and waft a little bit, grab a glass of water, grab a LaCroix, grab a kombucha, and sit down and do my thing. And I'm okay. So there is a scale here. I don't want people to walk away from this conversation because we started this conversation talking about not being moralistic. And I would hate for anybody listening to this who goes, well, how the fuck am I going to become sober if I do X, Y, and Z as a job and I'm all around this stuff, right? Yeah. And that's how I pay my bills, right? I'm not telling you, nor would I ever tell you, to totally quit your job, cut out every friend that you have in your friend group and start over, right? Because that also sounds like a pretty intense, emotionally dysregulating act that might push you back to a substance use. What I'm suggesting is work with those faders, increase the volume on the stuff that's healthier for you and still gives you that dopamine and still gives you that joie de vivre, that feeling like you're alive and worth something. Set boundaries with your accountability buddies, right? Your friends and family. Vocalize your boundaries. Tell other people the journey that you're on so they can back you up. Like, hey, man, I thought you're not drinking. Hey, I thought you're not smoking. That sort of thing.
Yeah, be proactive, pre-decide.
Be proactive,
pre-decide. Have a plan. Know
Yeah.
what your alternatives are before you go to those places. Bring things with you. So if you have cravings or whatever, you can engage in something else. Okay, I need an oral fixation. Let me
Yep.
eat those
I have
sunflower
my
seeds.
vape or sunflower seeds. Oh,
Yeah.
I love sunflower seeds. That's a good
So
one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
something like that, that like when you get a craving, you can kind of
Right, the
like,
donut, the clementine, the fruit, the thing,
yeah,
the quick sugar burst, right? A pack of Gushers, whatever. But like we're
some
the
gum, like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God, gum, right?
And look, not everyone has to say they are fully sober, and that's an identity. And sometimes it's so hard to commit to that reality as
Right,
being like,
right.
this, am I doing this forever? That sounds like such a intense fixed thing. That's why I say, like, communities who are used to doing this, they don't do that. They just say one day at a time.
Right.
One day at a
Right.
time. Today, how do I feel today? Right? What
Yeah.
am I doing today? What are my choices
Yeah.
today? Don't have to worry about tomorrow, into the future, what you're doing the next vacation, whatever. Like, no, today, tomorrow. And every day is a new day with a new set of choices. And just make the choices for today. And try to have those intentions where you're making the choices that are healthy, limiting the consequences.
Give yourself the gift of feeling a different kind of good. A like an unfiltered good. Like something I'll try and leave. This will be my last comment because it feels right. I've had more moments of laughter with myself. I've had more moments of pure self-love and compassion, even when I'm really upset, even when I'm really sad or really languishing. I've been languishing recently since this Mardi Gras, which was 2 months ago. But I've been going through, Aaron and I lecture on this. Languishing comes before burnout. I've been getting really close to burning out. And happy to announce I hired an executive assistant. She starts next Wednesday. We're very excited. But in those moments when I feel the most self-flagellating, like the most self-deprecating, the most like beating down on myself, there's a little voice in there that's like, hey, but you quit weed. But like, hey, you did something really powerful. Like, I'm so proud of you. You did it. And that, I don't know, you guys. There's whatever that thing is in your life that has such an intense opportunity cost that it's causing whatever you define as devastation, whatever devastation is being caused in your life because of this thing. I feel like I'm my mother right now. Give yourself the gift of experiencing a day without it, of experiencing a week without it, of experiencing 2 weeks without it. Give yourself the gift of experiencing your emotions and your body and your brain without that thing in the room. And if you got to go back to it for a bit and try it again, no one on this podcast is shaming you or judging you for that. But it's a gift. It's a gift that I give myself every day. Truly.
And I'm so proud of you too.
Thank you, baby. I can't believe I did that shit for so long and so much. I still can't. I'm still shocked. The video images of me in early podcasts with my eyes like glaring red, like serpents, and this terrified person of being caught.
Yeah.
This terrified person
It's
of being
uncomfortable.
caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to not be able to watch it. Now I can, and I laugh because I am my mother's son after all. And it's like our appreciation for dark comedy is just too great. But like I used to not be able to watch it. Now I smile and give myself a big hug.
Yeah.
Dude, this THC, you guys, is not the same that you used to smoke in high school or that we used to smoke in the 90s. It's not. It's doing stuff. It's doing really big stuff to our brains. And I just love anybody listening who's struggling and hasn't been able to talk about it and hasn't been able to tell their friends that it's bad for them and it's not working and it's making things worse.
Well, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. No, this wasn't easy. This took a lot of courage.
Thank you.
It really did. For the listeners too, just so you know the context, like I think this has been kind of this unsaid elephant in the room for a while of something that I think we've been dancing around and thinking about maybe having a discussion about or doing some kind of podcast work on, and we haven't done it yet. I don't think we've been ready to do it yet.
That's why I was talking at the speed Ferrari car drive. Dude, like that's why I was like "Wah!" coming out of me, because it's like it's just been backlogged. Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that. I think this is going to be really impactful for a lot of people that hear this who are relating to this. And I'm here for you. We're here for you.
Y tú también, y yo para ti. Awesome. There's no way to end this other than to say we love you. We love everybody listening. The world played a nasty trick on us, making tobacco sound cool. Fuck you, Jimmy Dean, James Dean, and making weed sound cool. And there's so much cool about this stuff. It's pop culture. It's fun. It's Pineapple Express. It's Cheech and Chong. It's Willie Nelson. I would never deny anyone's vision, like what the world has pumped out to make these things fun and cool. But I know if you're listening to this and you've gone through the set of scenarios I've gone through, that you're suffering. And I really hope you're not suffering in silence. That's all.
Thanks for listening.
Woo. Until next time.